Please justify that and tell me about that.
Well, Senator, I don't know, but the Democrats had the trifecta, and there was no tax increase or wealth tax on billions. You all had a scheduled expiration of Obamacare subsidies, and you did not extend that when you were in charge.
The latest flare-up in the Senate feels unusual. The fiery exchange between Bernie Sanders and Scott Bessent is impossible to overlook.
Help me out here. My understanding is the Trump administration has, I think, 13 billionaires in office right now, leading government agencies. Is that about right, do you think?
I have no idea, Senator.
I think that's what the number is. Do you think it's a coincidence, given the large number of billionaires in the Trump administration, that this particular piece of legislation would provide $235 billion in tax breaks to the top 0.2% by expanding the exemptions in the estate tax?
Senator, I will tell you that when the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, my tax rate went up.
Well, I don't know your exact situation, but I can tell you. Tell me about how many people do you think are in the top 0.2%?
Sorry?
Number of people in the top 0.2% who would benefit from this particular $235 billion tax break.
Well, the top, I know the top 10% is
right.
now paying $7.
Sanders erupted over what he sees as unjust tax breaks for the wealthy and the devastating Medicaid cuts that millions of Americans fear.
My question is, why do you think at a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, when people like yourself economically have never ever had it so good, why do you think it's a good idea to cut Medicaid for low-income and working-class people by $700 billion to give $235 billion in tax breaks to the very, very, very richest people in this country, perhaps a few hundred families? Please justify that and tell me about that.
Well, Senator, I don't know, but the Democrats had the trifecta, and there was no tax increase or wealth tax on billionaires. You choose.
I'm not talking about a tax.
You chose not to.
Mr. Bessent, I am not talking about a wealth tax. Explain. A few hundred of the wealthiest families in this country, $235 billion tax break. Explain to the American people why you think that's a great idea.
I think that this will increase small businesses substantially. That most small businesses, they are...
Has zero to do, come on, you're smarter than that. This is the top 0.2%. This is not a mom and pop store. These are multi-billionaires, and the savings go to their kids after they...
But Bessent wasn't about to back down. He shot back, flatly rejecting Sanders' accusations and throwing in sharp criticism of his own. The clash had the whole chamber buzzing. It wasn't just politics, it was pure drama. If you enjoy following debates where the tension is thick, this one was worth every second. So let's break down what really happened during this fiery tax showdown between Bernie Sanders and Scott Bessent. To put it simply, it was a battle to remember. Sanders came out swinging, questioning the morality of slashing Medicaid for millions while handing out generous tax breaks to the ultra-wealthy. To him, it looked like Robin Hood in reverse, taking from the poor to give to the rich. His fury zeroed in on tax cuts for the top income brackets, arguing that the richest Americans were cashing in on benefits while Medicaid was left strapped for funding. When you think about the families who depend on Medicaid to survive, it's no wonder his outrage boiled over. But Bessent fired right back. He argued these tax breaks weren't for Wall Street tycoons, but for small businesses, the backbone of America. According to him, these businesses often face cash flow struggles and can be hit hard by estate taxes when passed down to the next generation.
Let me ask you another question. If you guys want to cut $1 trillion in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, the estimate from CBO, I believe, is that over 15 million people lose their health insurance. Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania estimated that when you throw that many low-income and working-class people off of health care, some 50,000 people a year will die. Tell me why you think it's a good idea to give tax breaks to billionaires and allow 50,000 low-income and working-class people to die unnecessarily?
Senator, first of all, that's overstated by 5.1 million. That is not attributed to this bill. It's simply...
It's a combination, that's true.
No, you all had a scheduled expiration of Obamacare subsidies, and you did not extend that when you were in charge. 5.1 million. 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid, and there are work requirements. And our goal is to get more money to children.
Raising exemptions, he said, keeps them alive instead of forcing sales or debt. Bessent even cited a striking statistic. 82% of business failures stem from poor financial management, showing how fragile many are. In his view, expanding exemptions could mean the difference between survival and collapse. The back and forth only grew sharper when Sanders shifted the focus to Medicaid. He warned that cutting funds could strip health coverage from as many as 15 million people, citing research from the Congressional Budget Office and studies out of Yale and Penn. For Sanders, this was the heart of the issue. Human lives on the line, not just balance sheets. Sanders pressed further, arguing that cuts would drain money from children and devastate families. But Bessent came ready with the counterpunch. He dismissed Sanders' figures as exaggerated, insisting they didn't reflect the bill's true design. Then he turned the tables, reminding Sanders that during the last Democratic administration, he'd failed to extend certain Obamacare subsidies. The message was clear: you had your chance to fix this, and you didn't. At that point, the debate got murkier. A UC Berkeley researcher noted that the projections Sanders cited could be off by as much as 25%, either overstated or understated, depending on the assumptions behind the math. Leaning too heavily on uncertain estimates is risky, and once politics gets involved, the picture only gets blurrier. Then came another flashpoint: Medicaid work requirements. The new big beautiful bill, as Bessent called it, required adults.
How many people, and I was surprised to hear this, I don't know if you know it or not, how many people lose their jobs every year, quit, get fired or whatever? Do you have any idea?
Well, there's something called the quits rate, and so when the job market is strong, more people quit.
But yeah, I was surprised that I just researched this. I don't know. Do you happen to know?
I don't know the number.
I was surprised. I mean, would it be shocking to you? It was to me. 20 million people leave their jobs a year. Doesn't shock you, right? It's a big labor force, right?
Yep.
So some guy leaves the job, maybe they move, maybe something happens in their lives, right? We have a lot of transition in the labor market, correct?
Maybe they get a better job.
Right, exactly, maybe they do. Or maybe they have to stay home, their wife gets sick, whatever, we don't know. But 20 million people lose their jobs in a given year, leave their jobs in a given year. Are those people lazy? What happens when I leave my job and maybe I have to move to another state to take care of my ill mother? And I desperately need Medicaid. Am I too lazy now to be able to get Medicaid?
I think that's a mischaracterization of the work requirement.
Really? Well,
Ages 18 to 64 to work, attend school, or receive job training for a set number of hours each month. Exceptions were written in for caregiving and other real-world situations. Sanders blasted these provisions as needless barriers that would leave vulnerable people without support. Bessent pushed back hard, arguing the rules were being misrepresented. Far from punishing people, he said the requirements were designed to encourage stability and upward mobility. By helping recipients secure jobs or training, the program could strengthen their financial footing over time. But Sanders wasn't buying it. He fired back with sobering statistics, pointing out that 20 million people lose their jobs every year. In a volatile economy, he said, the safety net isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. The tension between Sanders' emphasis on wealth disparity and Bessent's defense of small business growth highlights a larger debate about how economic fairness should be defined in America. Sanders frames the issue as systemic inequality, wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, leaving the majority with stagnant wages and diminished opportunities. His argument rests on the belief that redistributive measures, progressive taxation, stronger social safety nets, are necessary to correct structural imbalances. Bessent, however, grounds her perspective in the practical struggles of small businesses, which often operate on razor-thin margins and face regulatory and tax burdens that threaten survival. To her, prosperity is built from the bottom up through entrepreneurial resilience, not through wealth redistribution. What makes this debate compelling is that both views address real economic pressures, but through different lenses. Sanders spotlights fairness in outcomes, while Bessent emphasizes fairness in opportunity. The real challenge, then, is not choosing one side, but asking whether these priorities can be reconciled, whether a system can both reduce inequality and foster small business vitality. This unresolved tension reflects the broader national conversation about growth, equity, and sustainability, reminding us that policy is rarely about absolutes, but about balancing competing truths.